On September 30th, 2025, the Netherlands executed what can only be described as a corporate ambush. Without any prior communication or legal hearing, Dutch authorities launched regulatory measures against Nexperia, a Chinese-owned semiconductor company operating on European soil. The Amsterdam Court of Appeal removed the company's Chinese CEO, Jeang Shuing, from his position, appointed a foreign executive as interim CEO, and transferred 99% of the company's shares to a third-party trust. The Dutch government's official justification centered on claims of serious management deficiencies and the need to protect the economic security of the Netherlands and Europe. Yet no substantive evidence was provided to demonstrate that Nexperia posed any actual threat to European economic security. The target of this unprecedented seizure was no ordinary company. Nexperia had been fully acquired by China's Wingtech technology in 2019 for $3.6 billion. Over the following years, it had established itself as a critical player in the global automotive-grade power semiconductor sector. The company's products are now widely used in electric vehicles, industrial control systems, and other mission-critical applications. Its customer portfolio reads like a who's who of global manufacturing giants. Bosch, BYD, Siemens, Tesla, Volkswagen, and Toyota all depend on Nexperia's semiconductor components. The company produces more than 110 billion chips annually, making it an indispensable link in the global electronics supply chain. What makes this takeover particularly ironic is the geographic reality of Nexperia's operations. While the company's headquarters is registered in the Netherlands, more than 70% of its core production capacity is actually located in Dongguan and Shanghai, China. The Dutch government may have seized the legal entity and intellectual property rights, but the actual ability to manufacture and supply products remained entirely in Chinese hands. In practical terms, the Netherlands had taken control of a corporate shell, while China retained the operational soul of the business. The timing of the Dutch action reveals a broader geopolitical pattern. Just one day before the Netherlands forcibly took over Nexperia, the US, Department of Commerce issued what it called a piercing rule in September 2025. This regulation expanded American sanctions to include all subsidiaries in which companies on the entity list hold more than 50% ownership. This followed an earlier move in December 2024 when the United States had placed Wingtech technology on the entity list without presenting any factual basis for the designation. The sequence of events strongly suggests that the Netherlands was following the United States in its broader campaign to suppress China's technological advancement. Perhaps Dutch authorities believed that with American backing, they could execute this seizure smoothly and take control of a valuable semiconductor asset without serious consequences. That calculation proved catastrophically wrong. Within 1 week of the takeover announcement, authorities in Beijing issued a new export control notice that would shake the global automotive industry to its foundation. The regulation explicitly prohibited Nexperia's China facilities and their subcontractors from exporting core products, such as automotive power semiconductors. Public information shows that Nexperia operates a packaging and testing plant in Guangdong, covering approximately 80,000 square meters, mainly producing discrete devices, analog chips, logic chips, and power devices. After China implemented this export control policy, the capacity utilization of Nexperia's China facilities immediately dropped from 90% to less than 10%. Even more dramatically, its delivery capability to European customers plunged from 95% down to only 3%. The effectiveness of China's counterstrike stemmed from a simple operational reality. While the Dutch government appeared to hold the company's equity and intellectual property, the real manufacturing and supply capability remained entirely within Nexperia's factories in China. What the Netherlands had taken over was essentially an empty shell that had been stripped of its productive capacity. Shortly after the takeover announcement, Nexperia's China entity clearly informed all employees that they would only follow instructions from the company's legal representative in China. This effectively drew a complete operational boundary with the Dutch side, rendering the takeover impossible to execute in any practical sense. The impact on Europe's automotive industry erupted almost immediately. In Germany, Volkswagen's main plant in Wolfsburg was forced to shut down all production lines, with direct economic losses exceeding €100 million per day. BMW's Munich plant saw delivery cycles for high-end models extend from 3 months to 6 months, with order losses reaching historic highs. In just 2 weeks, European automakers saw more than €3.5 billion in output erased, and over 12,000 workers faced temporary layoffs and reduced income. The ACEA, which represents Europe's top automakers, issued an urgent and rare statement warning that if chip supply cannot be restored, Europe's automotive industry will suffer irreversible damage. Europe found itself uniquely vulnerable because of the automotive industry's extreme dependence on Nexperia's components. From brake control systems to lighting modules to high-voltage power systems, almost every safety-related automotive function relies on semiconductors that Nexperia supplies. The problem extended far beyond Europe's borders. In North America, Honda announced production cuts and shutdowns at multiple assembly plants. One factory in Ontario, Canada, was forced to cut capacity by half. Data reveals that 86% of Europe's key industrial companies purchase related chips from Nexperia's China facilities, and approximately 1/3 of automotive supply chain companies rely on Nexperia as an exclusive supplier. Switching to alternative suppliers is nearly impossible because automotive-grade product certification cycles take months or even longer to complete. By November 5th, the German Association of the Automotive Industry issued what amounted to a final ultimatum to the Netherlands. It warned that if the Dutch government could not provide a viable solution, Germany, France, and Italy would invoke the crisis exemption mechanism under Article 17 of the EU Chips Act. This would allow them to place Nexperia's European wafer fabrication facilities into projects of common European interest, effectively bypassing Dutch legal control entirely. But even this dramatic measure would not solve the fundamental problem. The production capacity remained in China. Then came China's second countermeasure, one that struck at the very heart of Dutch industrial power. On December 1st, 2025, China's rare earth export control measures officially took effect. The new regulation contained 2 clauses with enormous implications for the global semiconductor industry. The first established what can be called the 0.1% red line restriction. It states that as long as lithography, machines, or related equipment contain 0.1% or more China-origin rare earth materials, an export license from China is required, along with mandatory end-user reporting. This provision effectively closed off third-party transshipment routes that companies might have used to circumvent direct controls. The second clause targeted advanced semiconductor manufacturing equipment directly. Any supply involving equipment for 14 nanometers and below, logic chip mass production, 256-layer and above memory processes, testing equipment, and key materials must now undergo case-by-case approval from Chinese authorities. This precision targeting devastates the Netherlands because China controls approximately 90% of global rare earth refining capacity, and ASML, the pride of Dutch semiconductor industry, depends heavily on China-origin rare earth materials. The ultra-precise lens polishing required for EUV machines relies entirely on high-purity cerium-based materials sourced from China. Internal motors in these sophisticated machines use more than 10 kilograms of rare earth permanent magnets, accounting for over 30% of component cost. Magnetic levitation systems require heavy rare earth elements, such as dysprosium and terbium, for which there exists no viable global alternative. Data shows that the rare earth compounds ASML imports from China each year account for 26.4% of China's total rare earth exports. This is not a minor supply relationship. It is a fundamental dependency that cannot be easily replaced. ASML has previously attempted to reduce its reliance on Chinese rare earth materials, but every attempt has ended in failure. When engineers tried replacing rare earth magnets with ordinary materials, production costs rose by approximately 40%, while performance dropped by around 30%. Southeast Asia's rare earth refining capacity represents less than 5% of the global total, making it insufficient to meet ASML's needs. The United States possesses rare earth mines, but extraction and refining costs are approximately 3 times higher than China's. And the purity typically reaches only 92.9%, far below the 99.9% purity required for lithography equipment manufacturing. ASML's current rare earth inventory can only support approximately 8 weeks of production. If export license approvals from China are delayed or denied, monthly output may decline by 15 to 20 machines, and annual revenue losses could exceed €3 billion. For a company whose lithography machines are essential to the entire global semiconductor manufacturing ecosystem, such production disruptions would have cascading effects throughout the industry. TSMC, Samsung, and Intel all depend on ASML's equipment for their most advanced chip manufacturing processes.